Okay, issue 12 of the tutorial series of how to make airports for X-Plane with WET. And today's issue will be about placing taxi routes. Taxi routes are needed for AI aircraft to use your airport. And if you don't place taxi routes, the AI will know where the runway is and it will know where taxiways are. But for example, on a big apron like this, it has no idea where this little yellow line is. It will just taxi merrily in the middle of the whole apron or the whole taxiway texture, so to say. That's all that it can see. So we need a little bit more of a more precise way to tell the AI aircraft where to taxi. And not only X-Planes AI is using it, I think some third-party uh, AI traffic programs are also using this information. So it's kind of important to place stuff correctly. And the way to place it is using this little ATC tab, the little yellow arrow here with the ATC uh, written underneath. And when you do that, you get this little line up here, and you can switch here between aircraft and ground trucks. And in this part of the tutorial series, we're talking about aircraft. You can see that there are a bunch of uh, things up here that you can change, parameters for the line or the AI route information that you're about to lay down. And well, let's go through this real quick. One way, two way is obvious. Runway is where you specify if the route that you're laying down is a runway or not. You have departure, which means keep this part of my taxiway clear of aircraft if there's a departure on runway 03 or if there's a departure on runway 21. The same for arrivals, and that's useful for placing information or taxiways, blocking parts of the taxiways, like from this whole short line to the runway where you don't want any aircraft if the runway is in use. Same for the ILS. We don't have a low visibility area. Sometimes you would have like a second line, the two lines with the little middle bars that denotes an area that needs to be kept clear if there are low visibility procedures in use at your airport, and you can specify those with the ILS button. We'll do that in a minute. Then you have the size of the aircraft that you want your route to use, going from A, which is a Cessna, B is a little bigger, like maybe a Challenger jet or something. A C would be like a 737, A320. D is like a DC-10. E would be like a 747, and F would be like an A380 super category. And then, oops, clicked. The name denotes the name of your taxiway. That would be like Alpha or Bravo or Charlie. Just put down A or B or C. Don't write Alpha out because the uh, AI in X-Plane, the tower or the ground, they will try to pronounce it. And if you write down Alpha, it would say taxi via Alpha Lima Papa Hotel Alpha to runway 03. They won't say Alpha. Just put an A there and that's fine. Slop is the way to tell WET how accurate you want your clicks to be. If you connect two taxiway lines, they will snap the nodes together and merge them together. This is a way of telling the AI that they can use or jump from one end of the route into the next one. If they're not merged, then you will get a the notification about it. But if you have the slop really high, then it will merge it more readily than if it's really tight. If it's only one, you have to click exactly onto the other node for it to merge automatically. So 10 is like a good default. Enough of the chatter. Let's start placing some routes. And what I like to do on my airports, I like to start out with the runways. And remember, if you don't have anything selected, it will just appear above your airport project. So, well, for now, we don't have any group yet. We'll start with the runway. I won't select anything. Let's see where that goes. So I pick runway for my first um, taxi way that I'm placing, and I'm not picking anything else because when you have runway, it will automatically fill out these ones. You'll see that in a minute. Let's go down and we'll start where the runway starts. Now, you could just go right here to the edge, but I'm not doing that because later on I will connect that part of my runway AI information with this taxiway, and I don't want the aircraft to taxi from here all the way to the edge and then run with one wheel in the dirt. So I'm just kind of like imagining this to go straight. I would just start from here, and then I'll zoom out, scoot this up, go all the way to the end. Again, do the same thing approximately here. We can fine tune this later. I click. Now you see if I zoom in really well that this is not exactly in the middle. Hit return, and then I can later on adjust that if I want to. Now see, there's this little blue line that appeared, and oh, it did appear inside my airport here. That's good. And you can see that I have one entry called 0321. I have a stop entry and a start entry. Now these are the nodes. Let's go back to the vertex tool. You see if I click on the start node that the property is only latitude and the longitude, and the highlight is down here. Let's zoom in, and I can now adjust this to be more precise. It's not, doesn't matter if you don't have to be within like a centimeter of the center line, close enough. And the stop node would be over here, so I can adjust that as well. But if I click on this, then the whole section is highlighted. See, I get the stop node highlighted and also the start node. And if you click on the whole section here, then this is the same as if you would click here. See, it selects the whole section. This one would just select the start, and this one would just select the end. That's the way these things work. They have a section line, they have a start line and an end line. And on the section line, you can see all the properties. You can see if it's a runway or not. I could say, no, this is not a runway. This is just a regular taxiway. And but it is a runway, so I switch that back. And you see if I say that it's a runway, it immediately gets the name is auto-filled. It's filled to 0321. The departures is auto-filled to both ends of this runway. The arrivals is auto-filled, and also the ILS precision area, because obviously you don't want any aircraft taxiing up and down this runway if the runway is in use by arrivals, departures, or if there's an ILS precision approach in progress. The one way doesn't really make sense here. You could click that, and there's also another important thing. If you're placing these infos, you can obviously stay in the regular tab, the selection tab, but you could more easily see what you're doing if you click on the taxi and flow tab. You see a lot of this stuff is pruned, so it gets a little decluttered, and now you have this very handy bluish information. The little lighter outline is the edge of the wingtip area. So this is the wingtips if you would fly a Class C aircraft down this runway, and the darker blue here is the wheelbase. So you can easily see, especially if you're placing this later on taxiways, is the size that I specified too big for my taxiway or not. Now, keep in mind that X-Plane will also check internally while they're generating AI traffic if your runway is big enough. So even if we made this size F, we say, hey, this is cool. We want some A380s to land at our airport. And you can see what's kind of big enough for the wheels. Of course, no pilot with his right mind would try to land an Airbus A380 on a 2,000 meter runway, 6,600 feet approximately. So X-Plane will also not do it. X-Plane will refuse to land airplanes here, even if you specify size F. And so don't be confused if you see that no big airplanes like jumbos or so are landing here. Even if you set this to F, X-Plane will do a second internal check, seeing if the runway is big enough, the actual physical runway that you placed. So that wouldn't make any sense. We're going back to C. I think this is probably the biggest aircraft that you'll see at an airport with a 2,000 meter runway. And we'll leave it on C for the rest of our projects. The runway is placed. Let's start with the first taxiway. And we're going back to the ATC tab. Now we are not placing a runway. We're clicking on none. And we're not filling out all this stuff yet. We'll leave it on C. Now here you would place the name of this taxiway. I don't know the name. I try to find some charts here for Raleigh, exec jetport. And a lot of times when you make smaller airports, you won't really find any names. Some of these, or a lot of these airports simply don't have any official names for the taxiways. Now don't write down parallel taxiway or main taxiway or northern taxiway, whatever, because again, the ATC speech engine will try to pronounce that and it will just go alphabetically. And if you say northern taxi, it will say taxi via November, Oscar, Romeo, Tango, Hotel, Echo, and so on. Don't do that, just leave it blank, and that's fine. Then the ATC won't say anything, it will just say taxi to runway 03, and you can find your own way. So we'll leave this blank, and I'm starting out over here, and again, see if I click somewhere close enough here to this one, then the slop will take care of connecting these, and that's what I try to do. And then of course you don't want to place like 100 segments for the AI to really follow this smooth. Keep it a little simple. I will go one, maybe two, and a third one over here, and you can see that it's, you know, kind of like approximating this turn close enough. And then I'll go all the way over here, and I'll place one here. Again, this is an approximation. The AI will go this way over here and then make a fairly tight turn. It won't follow this line exactly. If you really wanted to follow the line exactly, then of course you can stop here and then go across here, make another one here, and make another one here. I try to keep it simple, and then the ATC will not go all the way here and then turn on a dime. It will start turning here, and that is still fine. So I'm happy with that. And again, then I'll click somewhere in the vicinity of this. See, I'm not even really close, and I just hit return. And if I zoom in now, you can see that this snapped together because the slop was big enough to capture this. This is like 10 pixels or whatever, 10, I don't know, units. It's 10 is fine. Now, if I go back to the vertex tool, and if I select this, you see that this is just one node. This is important. If this were two nodes still, then that means that the snapping didn't work, and you would also get an information later on when you try to validate. Then it says you have nodes that should be merged, and then what you do is if you have two nodes, then you select them both, and you would say edit, and then the merge here would be black, and then you could merge them, and then they would kind of snap together, explain that yes, this is supposed to be one node, basically, where the planes can go from the yellow taxiway to the blue runway without interruption. Now you see, C is kind of pushing it for this taxiway. The wheelbase is just almost going towards the edge. You can see over here, again, really close. If I click on this node, I can change the whole thing. You can see you can still move this around. And if you want to change more than just one node, then again, you click on this taxiway, you click in the middle. You can see, it's hard to see, but the center line just turned orange from green. It's selected. And now you could theoretically move the whole line. And you can also change the properties. Let's say we found out that C is too big. Let's move this back to the center line here. And let's experiment with B. What would B look like? I think B would be more comfortable with for this airport. But see, we just changed this section. We didn't change this section, so we'd have to change that as well. Go to B, and again, pull it a little bit so that the planes taxi in the middle. Here we go. And again, down here, you can see that right here, we're not in the middle anymore. So I would grab this node, pull it out just a tiny bit, and now my planes would go straight down the middle. So now we placed a parallel taxiway. You can check back here. We'll see maybe, okay, this one could be a little bit more over here like this. And this looks good. Here we are a little off again because this node over here needs to be a little bit more out. So now we have this placed nicely. Now let's place a second one, and I'll show you what happens now. We'll place this little axis here. We have placed all these ones. You can see 1, 2. There's a stop. There's another one. There's another stop, and so on. Don't ask me which one exactly is doing what here. If I want to change a property, I just click in the middle. Then I have this thing selected and I can change the property, but I'm not trying to do it over here. So what I do usually at this stage, I just click the first one, I click the last one, I make Control G, a group, I call it taxi routes, return, and then whenever you add something, you can just, add it wherever. It doesn't matter. There's no certain order, no nothing. So I just click somewhere in the middle, just making sure that I'm in my taxi route group, and I happily add and delete stuff. But I only do it by clicking in the main window. I never mess with these entries over here. They're just too confusing to me. And I just mess with them after I select it like this and then change the property. And I know I'm changing the property for the segment I just selected. I would never search for it over here because I don't know, should I change this one or should I change this one or maybe this one? I have no idea. Anyway, let's place this one. Again, what I'm doing here, I'll show you. I snap deliberately not close enough. I'll go over here and again deliberately a little closer but not too close over here, and I hit return, and look what happens down here. See, I moved in a little bit. It didn't snap. See, the blue line is unphased. Let's delete this again. We'll do it again. Clicking here. I'll go here and I'll go here. And now I was zoomed out a little bit more. I was within the 10 pixels. And what happened is this snapped, and by snapping, it pulled the center line away from the center line of the runway. Can you see this gray line? That is the center line of the old runway. And if I click on the runway again, now I have this segment selected from here to here. And you can see that it's not in the middle anymore. So when you do that, be aware that you are sucking away the old line from the new line. And if you don't want to do that, let's go back control. There's a couple of ways to deal with it. You can, of course, move them back, or you could just, let's say we never did that. You see it snap back. You could, in a way, and make a little note here. You just hold Alt, click, and see you made a little node in the middle. Of course, that also moved a tiny bit. Now you could say, hey, I'm placing one close over here, and hit return, and then it would snap to the node, and the node would still be in the middle, or you could another way would be to just not even get close to it. You just go here, and then you can drag this until it snaps. Snap. And now if I select this, you can see I have two nodes. Now you would have to merge them. And now they're merged and they're in the old spot. That's probably the safest thing to do. Of course, it means an extra step. Over here, we have auto snapped, and you can see, let's select this segment, that it's not in the middle anymore. Just pull it back until it's in the middle. Just be aware that when you're auto creating these intermediate nodes on the previous stretch of taxiway here, that it sometimes snaps it off of the center line or off of the runway center line, and then you need to move it back. And see, we're still also a little offset to the side. So what I'm doing is I'll move this over here. And this is basically like a second step that you need to take to make sure that the taxiway is now nicely on your center line. And you can see it's not, maybe, this line isn't totally straight. That's fine. We need another node here anyway. I'm holding on Alt, click, and I'm pulling this one over here. Now it's running exactly down both stripes. Now, why did I put a node here? Because obviously this is the sensitive part of the taxiway. And to select it, I'm clicking somewhere else. Nothing is selected. I click on this one. Now I want to say, hey, if there's a departure on 03 or an arrival on 21 or a departure on 21 or an arrival on 03 or an arrival on 21, don't use this. See, I got all these arrivals and departure options selected now. So whenever there's operation on 0321, then this section won't get used. Now, just to show you what I meant with the ILS is, let's say this had like a low visibility procedure, this airport, and the second line was running here. I don't place it now, but it would be running here. Then let's say, okay, if there's low visibility operation in progress, select the segment and say, maybe there is only an ILS to runway 03, then I would say this is the ILS precision area for runway 03. So if there are low visibility procedures in progress, category 2, category 3, don't use this segment if there's an ILS arrival to runway 03. And you can see it's like this little orangey thing here. And that way airplanes would stay out of it. But we don't have this here, so I'm just stepping back. And remember, we decided that we wanted size B only. So I'm clicking this one and I'm holding down Control, also selecting this segment. See, this one is highlighted, this one, this one. So these two segments are highlighted and I batch change them, hold down Control, click on B. I make them both size B. And I have to remember to set that up here. I'll do that now, size B. This is probably the biggest size aircraft that will use these taxiways. And I'll just do the same again over here. See, click here, return. I can already see that this was sloppy, so I hit the V key. This one is still highlighted. I pull this over here until it's on this center line and on this one over here. Zoom in a little bit. See, I'm still pretty good on my old runway center line. And make a note here. Now, I'm not, when I do big airports, I'm not changing this to the, red variant right now. I'll do another one. I'll do them all. I'm not going to do them now because that would make the video too long, but let's say we need one over here. So later on when I'm done, I would click this one, hold down Control, click this one, and click this one as well. And then, of course, hold down Control, batch change 03 to 1, 03 to 1. And you can see now all these segments that I highlighted. I haven't done this one yet, but see, I could have done this one in the meantime as well, or at the same time as well. You want to do that. If you don't, and you run the validation later on, this will happen. See, it says taxi route is too close to runway 03, must be marked, and it's probably this one over here. And dismiss and edit scenery. You can always zoom to issue. It's this one over here. Let's say if there's another one. Nope, it's the same one. This one. So this, obviously, this is the area that wet doesn't like, and of course wet is right. So I would have to do the same here. Click here. Change this section to conform with arrival and departure restrictions. And now if I run validate again, it's fine. Okay, and you see when the validate runs, you can also see, no, it doesn't now, but when there was something wrong with it, you can see the purple box here, the magenta box, where X-Plane says this is the runway safety area, and airplanes need to, excuse me, stay out of it. Now, that's pretty much all you want to know. We'll talk about placing ramp starts when we do the ground vehicle section, and important for placing taxi routes in regard to ramp starts. Well, I'm just going to jump to it real quick. Let's say we put a ramp start. We have a tie down ramp start over here. Place it here. You can see when you're in the taxi and flow tab, you get the footprint. If you're in the normal one, you don't. You just get this little symbol. But if you want to see where the plane is parked, you can, or which size space this plane would take up, you can turn on taxi and flow, and then obviously you can tell, okay, this should be an A, maybe a B, but if it's a B, then it will already not work with the one next to it. So this would be like an A ramp start. And don't, when you place the taxi route again, don't connect these ramp starts to the route. The route should just go from, it would just follow along this yellow line here, going over here, maybe going back here. But don't micromanage your aircraft. Don't tell them, okay, go here, turn here, this way, this way. People put, they go like this. They go like this, and then they go like this, and this, and this, and then here, and here, and here, and here, and over here, and so on. They make this, and then they say, okay, and if I just make this like this section, I make it a one-way, and this one too, make it one way. See, and now my plane has to go this way and park here, and then go out that way. That's not the way it is intended. Don't do it. This is all micromanaged. This would be something for the plane to figure out by itself. I would probably make a taxiway back here, because that's where I would expect, oops, move over here. That's where I would expect, don't even need this node, the plane to go and then connect over here, but don't tell the plane how to park or get out of the ramp start. The ramp start has some properties. This one is a tie down, which means the plane will just go straight out. Gate would mean there's a pushback truck that pushes it back to the next taxiway, but that's something for X-Plane to figure out. That's not your job to shoehorn the planes in and out of their parking spots. That's pretty much it for placing taxi routes, and the next video will do placing ramp starts and placing the ground vehicles.